Clean goth. Clean goth. Why? Why does a subcultural, countercultural movement need to now try and peacefully coexist with the mainstream modern trends? Why is this counterculture trying to enact diplomacy with the mainstream? There's no reason for this to happen. There is no reason for the birth of clean goth. This truly is one unholy matrimony. I hope I've used that word correctly, but boom. Just the sheer suggestion of clean goth irritates me to my soul and core. What do you mean? Is subculture dirty and unclean? Must it now package itself in a way that's cookie cutter and okay, in a presentational, visual way that the mainstream says, yeah, that's good? Have we not given the mainstream enough? They have the whole umbrella of alternative to which they have full reign to dress up and cosplay however they please. But attaching these micro trends to something of actual depth and historical value is just obscene to me. This is the mindset of capitalism showing itself within people. Everything can be commodified. Everything can be turned into a trend. It doesn't matter what it once was. It can just be sold and packaged to you in a TikTok for likes, clicks, and engagement. Dear universe, please no, oh please no. We are no stranger to talking about like the clean aesthetic, most notably the clean girl aesthetic, old money, quiet luxury. These current trends becoming very prevalent in society. Looks that involve minimalism, tradition, and neatness, being presentable at all times. Why are we trying to fuse this with goth, something that was a rejection of social norms? Moments like this on the internet constantly water down subcultures to just be this visual thing, this aesthetic thing that you can just buy from a shop and then suddenly you're part of that countercultural movement that has decades of history. Clean goth is quite literally wearing a black outfit with minimal makeup. Now, there's nothing wrong with wearing a simple outfit of black trousers and a black t-shirt and minimal makeup, but using that as the test for seeing if someone's goth or not is literally vile. These social media trends will have you think that literally I could, stand there in a black tank top and black trousers and my docs and be like, clean goth. I'm just a clean goth, guys. I'm the modern day example of clean goth. I'm the fusion of clean aesthetics and goth. And I've never been to any goth events. I don't go to goth clubs and I don't listen to goth music. Nothing about me is goth, but through social media and through these visual micro trends, we now associate goth with just this aesthetic. If they're wearing black, they must be goth. This micro trend infecting goth reminds me of when people are like, house tour, goth edition, and you've just got some plastic mass-produced bats on your wall, and I don't know, a coffin. There's nothing wrong with owning any of these things, but you're putting your whole totality on being part of the goth subculture, and you have to be real and honest. Some of the things you do in your life won't be related to the goth subculture you have a passion for. Owning a mass-produced plastic coffin and mass-produced bats does not make you goth. You may just be a goth that likes those things. This is like if a punk did a house tour and they had a poster of the fucking Sex Pistols on the wall. That corporate shithouse of a band. I am happy to concede that these things may be considered Gothic, but that word has well and truly been gutted to sell you mainstream crap and has nothing to do with the goth subculture. Gothic is just a marketing buzzword to sell you stuff. Enjoy it for what it is, no more, no less. And I think the ones that are falling for this trap the most, trying to combine, this current trend of clean with goth, are unfortunately influencers who are alternative, who may be goth. They know they have to make alternative content and also make it current. Let's blend the two. But surely you should know in yourself, if you are interested in subcultures, like goth, you would know you're not trying to pair it with mainstream stuff. It should just be about upholding what goth is about, the music. And maybe you could have even just called it, this is what I wear and also I think I'm a goth. It's fine. That's all good. You can dress up however you want. But pairing it with modern day micro trends like the clean aesthetic only reinforces that the subcultures are dirty and unclean, and how they were once countercultural is actually a negative thing. The things that we typically associated with the traditional goth look, we now must shame. There is nothing wrong with adopting a minimalist look if you are goth, right? And anyone that says otherwise is just an absolute teapot who has just been conditioned by social media to think that goth means you must be wearing a white powdered face with lots of heavy makeup. And I see people discussing this on Reddit. People being like, I've legit gone to a goth night before and wore absolutely no makeup and nobody said a word and nobody cared. Do you know why? Because they're there to enjoy the goth scene and to hang out with people that have a shared interest of goth music. Yes, some may be also interested in what society typically attaches as the goth visual look, but that is not the be all and end all. The main thing, of course, is you get amongst the music. Otherwise, you are just what the mainstream understands as counterculture and subculture, which is alternative. Just, you know, like those alternative clothing brands you buy from. Side note, I saw an advert from a very well-known alternative clothing brand the other day, and it was hilarious. Subculture hole straight to your door. Rock, shop, and roll just in one click. Holy consumerism, what the shithousery is this? But these are alternative brands. Alternative has nothing to do with counterculture and subcultures. It's just like the mainstream slop. It's sold to you on the exact same shelves as the mainstream product. And I'm not shaming anybody that consumes and buys from these alternative brands, but don't mix that up for actual counterculture, right? That would just be nonsense. I see videos where people are like, this is the clean goth look, and then people in the comments are like, no, this is just a black outfit. At some point, you can just be like, okay, this is how I dress and this has nothing to do with the subculture I enjoy, and that's totally fine. You don't need to try and combine your subculture with the current micro trends. All that does is just water them down and make the mainstream think it is just some visual thing they can all join in and do. And I should say that's not me gatekeeping. Anybody who wants to be can get amongst the goth subculture. You know, just immerse yourself in the music, try and pick the brains of people that have been in it longer than you so you can learn about it properly. Not just come online, don a look and be like, yep, I'm actually the Goth Lord 242, all bound down to me. Guys, I'm actually goth now because I wear all black all the time. You actually have to call me Your Highness Gothboy 6000 666. I don't know, I was pretending to have wings, but I don't have wings. It looks like I'm just doing the fucking chicken dance. I don't know why, but that just reminds me of that scene in Jimmy Neutron. Anyways, back to the point. I do not refute or deny that all the content creators who are participating in the clean goth trend are indeed actually goth. I don't want to deny anyone's authenticity. I don't think anyone would actually come online and be like, yeah, I'm clean goth, without actually, you know, really enjoying the music and such. Because that would be pure form over substance, just looking a thing so you are a thing. I don't think anybody's gonna do that level of shithousery, or at least I hope. And I think just for like the mainstream allure around like all black aesthetics, right, wearing all black clothes. Because of this, goth has been like absolutely martyred so that we can have alternative fashion halls, and then somebody will just wear all black and then they were like, whoa, so goth, so goth, and it's like, my dude, it's just a black outfit. But this is the thing on the internet, and you see it with all things like goth girlfriend, and it will just be a person wearing all black. But I just think it's funny because you would think a subculture that's all about rebelling would want to push back at things like clean. You know, this idea that if you're not this look, then you're dirty. It literally implies that. The clean aesthetic, clean girl implies that to not be like this is dirty or unclean or undesirable. And I think this kind of lifetime just shows how much the mainstream have watered down subcultures. Because it was only in like the 80s and 90s that goth and subcultures like that were being linked to things like the satanic panic. People literally thought goths were satanic worshippers. And now fast forward like 20 years, we're seeing goth and clean aesthetics side by side, fusioning, becoming one together like in Yu-Gi-Oh! With polymerization. I use Elemental Hero Avion and Elemental Hero, I don't know, I'm trying to make Flame Wingman, but I forget what they used to combine to make Flame Wingman. Anyways, back to the point, this is just an unholy matrimony. There was no need for this to coexist together. Clean goth is just clean girl in black. Clean goth is not real. Fashion styles evolve and change with time. These can be considered goth now. It is simply just a very normal black outfit. It's just somebody showing work ideas for the clean goth work look. Oh, this is like when I saw those things being like emo work fits, and it's just black top and black trousers. Your subculture doesn't need to come to work with you. We all understand with the environment and world we, live in, most of us have to have a job, right? We have to work in full-time employment for the majority of our life. But you don't have to try and crowbar the subculture you are a part of into your work fit. It can just be your work fit. We're all mature enough to know that you sometimes have to dress a certain way when you're in work or whatever. That's fine. It doesn't have to be like goth outfit and it's just a black suit, my friend. Goth finance, bro. You're simply just wearing a black suit, and that is okay. I don't care about all the visuals and theatrics. Just tell me what this subculture do and what they listen to and what they stand for. That's the part I'm interested in. Not who can just don the most stereotypical Gothic look and get the most likes, clicks, and engagements on the internet. Also, as we have critiqued the clean aesthetic in the past by pointing out that a large portion of the clean girl aesthetic builds from marginalized communities, but these white content creators that are the clean girl or the clean aesthetic are the ones getting all the credit and notoriety for this.
Hi, I wanted to talk a little bit about the clean girl aesthetic as a black individual who grew up in predominantly white schools. When I was growing up, that aesthetic, okay, we're talking lip gloss, big earrings, and having your hair slicked back. If you were a black person at my school or a person of color, having that look was considered, I know it's not PC, I don't like to use this term, ghetto, which is a negative term that people would label black people with if they were considered like uncouth or like not mainstream stylish.
Clean goth not only represents a dilution of the subculture, but also the whitewashing of it. It should be emphasized that it is not wrong to participate in the aesthetic. The issue is not at the individual level, but at the macro. The clean girl is perceived as morally and aesthetically superior for being on trend, whilst other styles are looked down upon. Traditional goth was about being non-conformist, celebrating all different types of people, and it truly did defy the mainstream beauty standards. Clean goth is wholesome, unintimidating. It's got that like Nickelodeon Netflix rebel feel because it's a black outfit, all mysterious, doing it so differently. Oh my gosh, so countercultural, so rebel. And this just kind of shows the state of the world and the societal pressures currently, that even subcultures, ones that used to, you know, push back at societal norms and expectations, now even members of these subcultures in present day are feeling the need to conform, to be less messy, to be less unapologetic, to fit in, to be homogenous. This attempted sanitization of goth has truly been one of the wildest trends I've seen with subcultures recently. Yes, you can argue that it's good that the mainstream is welcoming these subcultures and being like, yeah, that's cool, that's trendy. But by simplifying goth to this purely visual thing, we smooth away at its rough countercultural edges and just make it another thing the mainstream can package and sell to us as alternative. Get 2 for 1 on your clean goth essentials, a black t-shirt and black trousers. Clean goth. No. I see pictures like this and it's like clean goth essentials, Apple headphones, Apple iPhone in black. It's all just things in black. Chanel earrings in black. None of this has anything to do with goth. You simply just like wearing black things, and that is totally okay. Like I stress, I love wearing black, and by no means am I a goth. Not that I have any issues with the subculture, just not the one I'm mainly interested in. And I probably won't show any clean goth influencers' faces in this video because I don't want them to become the face of this whole argument. I don't want it to be like, well, if you just take down that person, all clean goths will be erased from the timeline. No, it's more of a conversation how even these alternative influencers and content creators and whatever they are, people feel the need to try and coexist subcultures with the mainstream, with these micro trends. Something where I'm sure if you just ask these people that have made these videos, they'll be like, yeah, goth is about the music. But they are leaning in, playing into the mainstream game of goth is just this visual thing. But this is why subcultures are just trying to really move away from the visual parts of it, because they just want it to be, you know, about the music or about what they actually stand for. Because we've got to acknowledge that no matter what the aesthetic is, eventually it will get packaged and sold to the mainstream, and the mainstream will not be able to distinguish between an actual, on a visual level, an actual goth and somebody that just says they're a goth for likes, clicks, and engagement on the internet. Subcultures on social media is so different to subcultures in real life. It truly is. No one cares about all this visual facades and the theatrics of that in real life. People just want to get amongst it and just enjoy and be around people that have the same shared interests as them, right? Like it shows, people are not thinking, oh gosh, have they got on the goth boots 6,000 Stomper editions? They're just thinking, yeah, this band is freaking lit. Let's go to the merch table after this and support them. Wayo, boom, boom, boom. Let me hear you say wayo. Clean goth, hey, boom. I don't know. Maybe I should be a DJ. Anyways, clean goth. Just be whatever goth you want to be, but just be an actual goth. Please, I do not care about how you visually present. Hey, if you find comfort in the traditional goth aesthetics, you know what the mainstream and you know what society associates with, goth. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you find that validates your existence and you think it feels like you, fine, that's awesome. There's a reason why many goths choose this look, right? And also if you're a goth that has a more of a minimalist look, that's also fine. There's no need to try and combo it and collab it with these micro trends from the mainstream though. All it does is just dilutes and confuses what goth is about. And we want subcultures to actually be countercultural, right? We don't want them to just be this form over substance nonsense party. That would be terrible for all. And if you're a goth that wears bright multicolored jumpsuits and clown makeup, cool, you're still a goth. It's as simple as that. Please, for the love of everything not social media, what's the biggest non-conforming thing you've done recently? Tell me, what's your thing you've done to just be like, nope, I don't want any part of that mainstream nonsense. I'm not trying to sanitize myself. I'm not trying to make myself packageable and presentable. Anyways, I'm Cal, that's Skog. Be another video here, and I shall see you all next time. Yes, I will. What's it, Scooby-Doo? Coming after you. I didn't write an outro. This is bad. Bye.